Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Just want to thank City Council, the Commission, just for this opportunity. It's a tremendous opportunity that I'm very much looking forward to proving the successes of the Grande Prairie Police Service. So thank you very much, and I look forward to working with everybody. I want to thank the transition team for the work that's already happened, and I look forward to being a part of this community.
Great. Well, welcome, Chief, to you and your family. It's exciting to have our first official member of the police service. And we know you've got a lot of work ahead of you. So thank you for coming to our community to do that work. I'm not looking around and seeing any hands up, so I think you get off really easy, although I'm sure that we'll have lots of questions and some really good dialogue with you next time you're here, Council. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you, Worship.
Thanks. Welcome.
Thank you.
So first up on our regular agenda is our service area update, and I'll turn it over to Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm going to start with the community and social development. The youth career and exposition is scheduled for Thursday, March 21st, and we'll make sure that that is in the council calendar. That'll be at the Bonnets Energy Center. The Grande Prairie Local Emergency or Immigration Survey is set to go live on September the 1st at the Experience GP event. So the survey will help gather valuable insights and information regarding immigration and integration in the community with the aim to improve services and living experiences for immigrants. And Enforcement Services, the Enforcement Services has been working closely with GPREP and the county to assist residents of the Northwest Territories with accommodating their animal care needs due to the mass evacuation. So currently we're caring for 23 dogs and 16 cats as part of that process. Fire Department, due to the wildfire threat, the Northwest Territories 911 call center has been relocated to the backup center of Grande Prairie's 911. So that's at the Westgate Fire Station. This has led to the redirection of all 911 calls originating from the Northwest Territories through to the dispatch backup center. And Northwest Territories dispatchers are managing that operation. So this arrangement ensures a seamless delivery of emergency services, and it's noteworthy that GP 911 was selected out of 20 public safety answering points in Alberta. We were selected to work with the province and the Northwest Territories to make that happen. So we're pleased to be able to support our friends from the Northwest Territories in that fashion. I also want to mention on the fire side that Grande Prairie Fire Department, in collaboration with the International Association of Firefighters, has organized a comprehensive one-day training session focused on wildfires. So this training initiative will be hosted by the Grande Prairie Fire Department, but it aims to enhance the skills and knowledge of firefighters in dealing with wildfire situations. Course will also be made available to external agencies, and it's scheduled to start in October of this year. On the RCMP front, there was an arrest made for kidnapping on July the 26th. The RCMP received a report of a break-and-enter in progress at a local hotel. It revealed that the tenants of the room had been abducted, and the police located the victim and later arrested 2 males for that particular incident. On the RCMP Community Engagement and Diversity Unit in the month of August, the unit has been busy participating in foot patrols throughout the downtown core. They've done UTV patrols along with the mobile outreach team within Muskosipi Park, and provided numerous detachment tours, assisted with the Alliance Church Welcome Center for wildfire evacuees, and doing shift patrols at Bear Creek Folk Festival at Muskosipi Park. For the Community Knowledge Campus, we hosted the Aquarian Regional Swim meet. Was held on August 11th to the 13th. 275 athletes, 60 officials, plus families and spectators. The arena staff are prepping to put the ice in at the Day Bar Arena, and that should be up and running on September the 5th for the winter ice season. And Design Works Center has been very busy with bookings for hockey camps and tryouts that have started for the 2023-2024 season. And on September the 2nd is Alberta Day, with free facility access to Eastlink Center from 1 to 9 p.m. and the Aquaterra Outdoor Pool from 12 to 10 p.m. The community is reminded that the Eastlink Center Aquatics shutdown starts on September the 5th, but the Aquaterra Outdoor Pool will remain open for as long as weather permits. And finally, sports development. Grande Prairie Slow Pitch League recently hosted 33 teams at their end-of-season tournament at South Bear Creek, and the Grande Prairie Museum and Northern Peacemaker Quilt Guild are hosting a 4-day quilting showcase called Bringing World War II Quilts Back to Canada, and that begins on September the 7th. And the folk tale tours and Girls Zone programs are now open for registration. So that's my report, Mr. Chair, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief Lemieux, and I'll recognize Councillor Berg.
Thank you, Chair Bressie. So, Director Lemieux, around the Aquatic Centre at the Eastlink Centre, you said it was closing in early September. Can you just remind everybody roughly how long we expect it to be closed?
So September 4th to October 22nd.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Clayton, then Councillor Thiessen.
Thanks, Chair Bressie. Chief Lemieux, just curious on that youth job fair in March of 2024. Is that a city event?
We've hired a temporary employee as part of a grant program, so yes, it is something that we are leading.
Okay, and so between now and then, is there a I'm hearing in the community that youth in that age to 14 to 16 are struggling to find jobs right now, which is really weird to actually say. I'm hearing from employers that at times they're preferring to hire potentially visible minorities and immigrants that may be moving to the city because of the fact that their availability is much larger than youth, because youth have school and extracurricular activities. And so I'm hearing that youth in our community are struggling to find jobs. I'm curious with this temporary position, if there's an opportunity, if we have a solution where we could send youth to sort of find jobs. The federal programs that used to be there don't seem to be as operationalized as they have been in previous years. And I'm wondering if you happen to have any information on those opportunities.
So what I'm going to say is certainly through community social development, we'll look at that, and we'll certainly talk to that individual that's been working on that program.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Chair Bressie. Thanks for the update, Chief Lemieux. I have a couple questions on, well, I guess they're similar, but they are different. In regards to your wildfire training, the one-day course that's being offered through the Grande Prairie Fire Department, during our wildfire season that we had back in May, there was a lot of frustrations locally from residents about wanting to be able to help and sort of being stopped from being able to help. Is that wildfire training specifically just for the fire department, or are we opening it to the public, or do we plan to do another one for anyone who might want to help in the case of a future wildfire?
Thank you for the question through the chair. So in this particular case, this is training specifically for our urban firefighters. So urban firefighting and wildfire suppression are different skills and tactics. So this is very specifically geared towards firefighters. That being said, certainly at the GPREP level, we're having conversations in terms of are there other things that we can do to involve the community and to use the community skills and supports that might be available. So we're certainly having those discussions.
Okay, that's really good to hear. If I may, I just have one more question. Thank you, Chair Bressie. Yeah, so very good to hear there. In regards to the Northwest Territory fires, I've seen a lot of Alberta Health Services around at the same hotels like that were there in May, and I know GPREP is working around the clock, and I don't envy their position. But are we having any help from the Northwest Territories government and their FCSS programs locally to help with the evacuees here?
I'm going to say that yes, to a certain extent. We have a number of staff from the Northwest Territories Emergency Management Office, but I have to say that their resources are very limited. So they have sites all over the province of Alberta. So we have, I think, 2 or 3 individuals from the Northwest Territories that are assisting.
Thank you.
I'm not seeing any of their hands, so I'll move on to the next agenda item, and I'll turn it over to Director Lemieux Chief Lemieux to introduce Sport Tourism Assessment Template Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll invite Katie Bieberdorf to the presentation table. It's her report, and I'll ask her to present it to Council. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Bressie. So I have a short presentation, and then I'll pass it over to Grant McDonald. He's a consultant from Sport Tourism Canada, and he will present the findings of the assessment. So for 2022 and 2023, City Administration has completed a number of activities. Staff attended Sport Event Congress in 2022 and had a booth at 2023 Congress, which was showcasing the sporting facilities that Grande Prairie has to offer. The Sport Facilities Guide was updated in conjunction with Economic Development, who also updated the Hotel and Facilities Guide. A website dedicated to sport, culture, and major events was added to the city's website to highlight Grande Prairie as a premier destination for sport and cultural event hosting. Administration is also working internally with marketing to create a sport tourism video to be utilized for future bid opportunities. To date, we have submitted 6 bids, 4 have been awarded, and 1 additional bid is currently being drafted for an event to be hosted in 2026 or 2027. Current staff resources allocated to sport tourism are limited. The Recreation and Sport Coordinator supports sport tourism and also acts as a liaison to sport and recreation groups, is responsible for outdoor recreation, community development, and user agreement management. A 2024 budget request for a dedicated full-time sport tourism coordinator has been submitted, and this position would begin implementation of the recommendations in the assessment tool, which include defining a sport hosting structure and resources, as well as creating a new sport tourism strategy. It has been recommended that previously allocated operational funds from the Leisure Centre are reallocated to support sport tourism initiatives, including the staff position, with no additional budget impact. A capital request for a sport tourism strategy has also been submitted. So now I will pass it over to Mr. McDonald, who is on the line to present the findings of the assessment.
Thank you very much, Katie, and stand by. I'm just going to bring up presentation. So good morning, Council. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning. My name is Grant McDonald. I'm a consultant with Sport Tourism Canada, and I will be providing you a very brief overview of the Sport Tourism Assessment template that was completed this year. So the Sport Tourism Assessment template is a tool for communities to help assess your current state and where you are in your evolution as a sport hosting destination. It can help you to provide some information that can help in decision making, and it is available to all members of Sport Tourism Canada, done completely virtually with our team. And Grande Prairie has received a score in key areas as well as a cumulative score. The 10 key areas or steps that you will see in this infinity cycle include from step 1 of event hosting structure and resources, step 2 research prospects, step 3 bid assessment, step 4 partnerships, and step 5 bid are all part of the bidding side of the cycle. And then once you win the bid, then step 6 is transitioning to host, step 7 event planning, 8 event delivery and activation, 9 post-event evaluation, and 10 event legacy. All of those are part of the hosting side of this infinity cycle, and this roadmap was developed in order to give host cities, as well as sport organizations, the opportunity to develop a more consistent and repeatable approach to sport tourism. Now, like many sectors, sport tourism is very acronym dependent, and in order to provide council as well as staff with the information that you need in order to have some consistent terminology, this eye test, as it appears on your screen, will help you to use your own sport tourism lexicon in Grande Prairie that can help everybody to speak the same language so that it doesn't become a problematic in communication, whether that communication be internal to council or staff within the department or to residents. So the Sport Tourism Assessment template, as I mentioned, does assess current status, and your sport tourism program shows your evolution and can set the strategic direction and tactical development. Because for each step, there are findings and recommendations. And then one of the key takeaways from the Stat Pro report is a 3-year quarterly action plan. This is just a sample of what that 3-year quarterly action plan looks like and the type of information that you can expect to see in the report. The Sport Tourism Assessment Template, or STAT, has 5 key steps. The first 2 are to complete a STAT input form, which is online, receive the STAT scores from Sport Tourism Canada, and then STAT Pro, which is what the City of Grande Prairie had retained Sport Tourism Canada to do. Step 3 was to review the scoring with Sport Tourism Canada, and we validated each of those inputs in all 10 steps. We assessed and discussed next steps with city staff, and then we had developed the STAT Pro report, which many of you, I'm sure, have seen. STAT Pro Enhanced is something that can be done but wasn't done for this particular project. Wanted to note that STAT Pro is an assessment of your evolution as a host sport tourism market, identifies areas for improvement. The Sport Hosting Index is a quantitative ranking of Canadian cities in Canada that was last completed in 2020, has not been completed by Sport Tourism Canada since then due to the impacts of COVID-19 and the impact on the sport hosting system in Canada. Now, when it comes to the report outputs for Grande Prairie, Grande Prairie was not ranked in cities in the Canadian Sport Hosting Index, but the city would fit within the 50 to 150,000 population. There, as I mentioned, there was no ranking in 2021 or 2022 due to the impact of the pandemic. It includes international events or national regional championships that have been hosted in the last 3 years, also the bids that have been awarded for upcoming years. The last edition in 2020, there were 122 cities listed. Recommendation is for Grande Prairie to complete the Sport Tourism Annual Report, which will help Sport Tourism Canada develop the Sport Hosting Index. When it comes to the evaluation of Grande Prairie as a sport event destination, existing infrastructure, you have approximately 3,500 guest rooms spread over 30 properties, including hotels, motels, and Northwestern Polytechnic residences. There's a good mix of indoor, outdoor, and other facilities that meet both the recreational needs of residents, but also the competition needs for the community that can serve as host venues for a wide range of provincial, national, and international sporting competitions and training camps. Grande Prairie, we would classify as an emerging sport host destination. You are active, but you are not at that mature state in terms of your readiness to bid and host. You do have the distinction of being both a past Canada Winter Games as well as an Arctic Winter Games host city. So from a multi-sport perspective, there is lots of local knowledge and expertise that has been built up over those games, as well as several single sport competitions provincially and nationally. Sport tourism has been identified as a priority area for the City of Grande Prairie. One thing that I will mention is that we did find that based on the current staffing levels, that sport tourism is a side of the desk initiative, and therefore it takes away from the available time that city staff have to work on their core operational requirements or functional responsibilities. So we would recommend shifting it from the side of the desk to the center of the desk so that Grande Prairie can be more proactive and intentional about sport tourism. That will help you to deliver the types of impacts that you're seeking to drive through sport hosting. And As mentioned in Katie's report, with the potential addition of new staff resources, that will help to alleviate some of the limitations of current staffing levels. Now, when it comes to the evaluation and recommendations, I won't go through these line by line, but we'll sum up by saying that there is a good foundation within Grande Prairie. There is a good mix of venues, and you do have access to key drive markets within Northern Alberta, British Columbia, and throughout Western Canada. There are still access to legacy funds, and a shift from the ad hoc to the more proactive approach is recommended. There are some marketing elements in place, but because staff are focused on the operations of sport events that are being planned and delivered, there isn't the opportunity to fully leverage those events. There is an opportunity to move to a more strategic approach with the redevelopment of the sport tourism strategy for Grande Prairie. And it is noteworthy that Grande Prairie is one of the few host cities in Canada where the Recreation and Culture Strategy and Recreation Facility Master Plan includes sport tourism. That is not happening in Canada, so that is a significant check mark for Grande Prairie. All of this to say that Grande Prairie is responsive to opportunities. You do excel when mobilizing the resources to bid and host sport events, but you are providing some of those city services on an ad hoc basis. So that does become a challenge and a pressure that is placed on staff, on council, and on the community. Transitioning from bidding to hosting, Grande Prairie, I do want to note that Grande Prairie is a best practice and leading in this area in Canada because you do mobilize so well and you are able to transfer the information from bidding to the planning for the successful delivery of sport events in the community. There are supports that are provided to the local organizing committee, but you could be more proactive in order to have planned and intentional results. Grande Prairie does provide cash and in-kind support, but events can be somewhat under-leveraged, as I mentioned earlier, because you're so focused on successful delivery of the event. There is no formal evaluation process or standards for the city, and there is no formal legacy program for sport tourism events. Now, when it comes to the quarterly action plan, we are recommending that this quarterly action plan commence in Q1 of 2024 in order to give council staff the opportunity to review the Stat Pro report and to be able to make some decisions on if and what you want to proceed with when it comes to the recommendations for that action plan. That does extend out 3 years and does give you a bit of a roadmap as to how Grande Prairie can mature as a sport hosting destination. When it comes to next steps, we encourage you to share the Stat Pro report with all partners and stakeholders, including local sport organizations, host venues, others within the community that may have an interest in attracting events, developing homegrown events, and planning and delivering those events, especially in your city-owned infrastructure. And then approve and execute the Stat Pro quarterly plan and recommendations, but feel free to make decisions that fit best with Grande Prairie and don't necessarily use it as a recommendation of the exact path that you need to be on. Grande Prairie has the opportunity to make some strategic decisions and choices so that you can ensure that sport tourism fits with the community, with all of your stakeholder groups, and that ultimately it is going to be seen as a positive and net benefit by all residents of Grande Prairie. With that, I will stop sharing and open it up for any questions.
Excellent. Thank you for the report. I will note in there that there are some discussion about staffing, and I know that we've got at least one member of committee that would like to ask some questions about staffing that are best kept in camera, and so I'll give it an opportunity to go in camera in a bit, and I'll just ask committee if you've got questions specifically about the staffing pieces to please save those for now. But in my queue, I've got Councillor Berg, then Councillor O'Connor.
Yeah, thank you, Chief Bressy. I'm just trying to think. Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Sorry. Chair Bressy. So I really liked the report, and I'm glad that you acknowledged our wins in it, because if you were to poll the community, I think the general consensus is that we've been quite successful in our bids and our hosting. And reading the report, I was actually quite surprised at some of the low scores, but I think they're all fair and valid when you measure and you find those gaps. So I appreciated the term that you used, mature, because there is some work to be done if we want to get serious. Looking at timelines, the heavy lifting in 2024, fully implemented mid-2025. And I don't think this is necessarily a staffing question, but Chair Bressy, if you feel it is, we could stop. Is there an overarching costing to this, to implementing this program?
Sure, I'll take that one. Thank you. So we have put in some small amounts of money for advertising and marketing and things like that in 2024, but not significant. Between salaries and the cost to get things up and running was about $140,000.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor O'Connor, then Councillor Bosch, then Mayor Clayton.
Yes, thank you, Chair Bressy. Mine does relate to staffing, and I'm only going to ask what kind of or number of positions would it take to put us at that right level? Is that an appropriate question to ask at this time?
I think that would be okay, and if Ms. Buberdorf wants to share more later, that's okay, but I'll turn it over to her for now.
Thank you, yes. So right now we're just allocating for one dedicated staff member, and then we could look at additional in future years if needed, but for now, just one position.
Yeah, it'd be curious, it'd be curious to find out from, was it Graham?
Grant.
Yeah, Grant, to find out what is the ideal level of position. Not that we're going to put one, but if it takes 5, then that's a totally different budget consideration when we come for this fall.
So sorry, you're hoping to ask Mr. McDonald a question, or?
Yeah, I'd like to ask Mr. McDonald.
All right, Mr. McDonald.
And through the chair to the councillor, yes, there is the opportunity to add resources that can shift it, sport tourism from the side of the desk, as I referenced, to the center of the desk. Based on the size of the community, based on the maturity level as a sport hosting destination, I wouldn't recommend going beyond the one full-time position to start, because you do have existing resources that have been contributing to the sport event attraction and hosting success of Grande Prairie over many years. So I would recommend one position to start, with the opportunity to reassess in 2 to 3 years based upon level of activity and level of success.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Chair Bressy. Thank you for the report. Mr. McDonald, I have a question, and it's kind of on a different avenue, but recently we've seen other cities, larger cities, of course, decline to move into big events involving sport tourism, so like the Commonwealth Games and the Olympics, and I do know and realize that's a whole different scale. But does that mindset of the cost for upcoming bids and the lack of sponsorship, does that filter into our level of, bidding in the future and hosting?
Yeah,
Yes, is the short answer. And through the chair, yes, you are correct that for many events, you do need to have that funding partnership in place. But one of the things that I would call to the attention of council, to staff, and others is that with a more strategic approach, you're able to make more informed decisions earlier on in the process so that you can choose to opt out if that funding partnership doesn't look to be sustainable through the rest of the bid phase and then through the delivery of the event. And if you are more strategic, if you are more intentional about what impacts you're trying to deliver through sport event hosting, then you can establish the funding partnerships with other levels of government as well as with the private sector much earlier on in the process so that it doesn't create that pressure during the bid phase. In each of the cases of the events that you referenced, and I would add another mega event of FIFA 2026, that in all cases, it was the funding partnership that wasn't sustainable that led to the ultimate exit out of the bid process. So I think being more strategic, being more intentional will help to serve Grande Prairie so that you're making good informed decisions that are based on evidence and solid partnerships and not based on emotion or hopes and dreams.
Perfect. Good to hear.
Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Chair Bressie. I have a couple questions on your actual statistics. In regarding existing assets, I guess my question would first be for Ms. Bieberdorf. Some of the statistics, although they may say "and," it shows a percentage of yes that they are. And I'm wondering, in regards to the communication with the consultant, who all was involved in the process. So it talks about stakeholders, and it talks about one in particular, event hosting requirement analysis. And to my understanding, through Grande Prairie Regional Rec, through Sport Connection, through the city, through other associate organizations such as bid committees for Arctic Winter Games, et cetera, that we've done some of this stuff. So some of the numbers don't, in my opinion, have a fair representation of reality in our community.
Sure, and thank you. I will probably pass this over to Grant in a second, but we did have this conversation when going through the process that we're doing a lot of these things, but they're not formalized. So that impacted the score in a lot of areas, but I'll just maybe get Grant to help me out with that one.
Thank you, Katie. And through the chair to your worship, for this process, in order for it to be a true baseline, the methodology that we use is if something is less than 100% yes, then it is a no to start. And that allows for a more formalized process to be developed within the community that fits for the community. So my response to that would be yes, in many cases, some of these things were in progress, have started, or have been done in the past, but on an ad hoc basis. They aren't standardized, they aren't formalized, and they aren't part of the current operating model. And as a result of sport tourism being on the side of the desk, that doesn't allow for a lot of those things to be in place and standardized for bidding and hosting currently. That's not to say that they aren't in progress or at various stages in their evolution, but that is the methodology that we use with every host city in Canada that completes this process.
You good?
Yep.
A question I've got is for Mr. McDonald. As you look at how this works across the country, how often is this completely municipally led, and how often is the municipality relying on a third-party nonprofit group such as a regional sport connector or another entity like that that's not directly a municipal organization?
There are various operating models across Canada. And in some cases, it's municipally led. In some cases, it may be a destination organization, whether that be destination marketing or destination management organization that is involved. In some cases, it can be a partnership. And there are examples of partnerships where the destination organization, a sport council, host venues, or even in some cases professional sport are part of that partnership model. So I would say that that opportunity to be tailored to Grande Prairie is something that should be part of the discussions that you have over the coming weeks and months. As there is no one right way to do it. In some cases, it's 100% municipally led. In other cases, it is an outside organization that may be at arm's length. And in other cases, it may be a partnership. And for many jurisdictions in Canada, I should point out that a shared leadership approach is the preferred method, where no one organization is responsible or has that mandate. It's something that is shared amongst many organizations, and they mobilize when opportunities present themselves.
Thank you. Mayor Clayton.
Yeah, if there's no further questions for the consultant, I'd like to make a motion to go in camera.
Sure. Yeah, I haven't been seeing other hands going up. I'm not seeing anybody panic for that. So, Councillor O'Connor.
I would move that we go in camera.
Well, I think there's a motion on the floor from the mayor. So, thank you for being a team player, though. Any conversation or debate on the motion to go in camera? Not seeing any, so I will call that to question. Great, and that motion carries, so we will go in camera. And just to be clear, I think we can release Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you. back to order in 3, 2, 1. Welcome everybody back to the Public Protective Services Committee. Just so everybody knows, we were not in camera that whole time. We did, due to a meeting that involved our mayor and most of CLT, we did take a recess to allow something else to happen. But we are back now. Council, I don't think that there's any business that needs to come out of this sport tourism assessment thing, but I think it would be appropriate to receive for information. So would somebody be willing to make a motion?
So moved.
Awesome. Mayor Clayton. And that motion carries. So next up, we've got a report on FCSS grants and funding, and I'll turn it to Chief Lemieux to introduce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So some time ago, we presented a report on funding for housing and homeless initiatives, and Council liked that report so much that they wanted to see similar information from FCSS. So our Acting Director of Community Social Development, Tammy Wenzel, is here to present that information.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Bressy. On June 20, 2023, the Public and Protective Services Committee directed administration to bring back a detailed report on the Family and Community Support Services, also known as FCSS, including some historical data. The City of Grande Prairie has been involved with prevention social programming since 1966, evolving into what today is Family and Community Support Services. The main objective has always been prevention programming, which is a strategic and proactive approach to enhancing well-being and resilience, ensuring that communities are equipped to thrive and face challenges effectively in response to community issues. Community social development, also known as CSD, plays a vital role in the management, funding, and contract aspects of FCSS. Council's Social Sustainability Framework has been guiding FCSS since 2011, with an updated focus on social inclusion in 2018. Every 4 years, the City launches an FCSS request for proposal, ensuring a transparent and efficient selection process, resulting in 4-year partnerships with local organizations. Beyond FCSS, CSD also manages other grant projects. Currently, what we have are our Grande Prairie Local Immigration Partnership, which is a partnership with the Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada. We've had this one in place since 2015. This, again, is with the purpose of enabling community stakeholders to lead the integration process for newcomers and immigrants. We also have a Grande Prairie Inclusive and Caring project, which we refer to as GPICC. This project just started in April of 2023. It's a new funding agreement in place with the provincial government, and it's in place until March 31st, 2025. The aim is to enhance the lives of immigrants and newcomers in our community. We also have a new grant project called Communities Building Youth Futures, also referred to as CBYF. Here is a commitment towards empowering our youth, ensuring that they have some areas around education, employment, enhancing those areas around better graduation rates and looking at what types of employment are in place for our youth in our community. The analysis section of this report has provided a financial overview of CSD, which includes FCSS funding allocations, grant details, and historical financial data. For the fiscal year 2023, CSD oversees a combined budget of approximately $3.4 million. As described on page 3 of 5 in the report, this is further broken down. The FCSS internal CSD budget is approximately $1.8 million, which is further broken down into several categories, which is our CSD administration. This consists of 4 positions, and CSD and housing and homelessness operational cost. Then we have our diversity and inclusion, which is approximately $107,000 and 1 position. This position is instrumental for the implementation of our equity, diversity, and inclusion initiatives, poverty reduction initiatives, and our coordinated system of care. We also have community social development, again, 1 position, and is responsible for youth engagement, community building, and accessibility. This position is currently leading the Community Building Youth Future Initiative and is supervising our new position, our Youth Community Social Development Assistant. We also have our home support services, which consists of 11 positions, which is mainly for seniors and our most vulnerable to remain in their homes. This is very important with our current housing affordability and rising costs of living. This program currently has a 4-week waiting list for services and will be reviewed and evaluated during the Seniors Gaps Analysis research with results available in Q1. Then we have our social policy planning, again, 1 position. This position is responsible for supporting research, policy making, community consultation, and grant applications. Now to dive into another section, which is our FCSS funded agencies. Our FCSS funded agencies receive approximately $980,000 in the first year, with a 2% increase yearly over the next 4 years to support 19 programs run by 15 different organizations. Details of the organizations and programs can be found on page 4 and in the attachments. It's important for Council to know that many of these groups did not receive all of the money that they asked for in the last RFP process. We had a lot of requests and a limited budget. In conversation with organizations, they have expressed concerns about receiving less funding year after year, fewer fundraising opportunities, the end of special COVID grants. At the same time, they are seeing an increase in needs, supports, and services with the rising cost of inflation and the impacts of social isolation during COVID. Another important point to point out is that our provincial contribution has remained the same since 2015. Additionally, a total of approximately $623,000 is dedicated to the grants and initiatives described earlier. The notable financial historical highlights can be found on page 5. For a more in-depth report, these can be found in the attachments. From 2019 to 2023, we observed the shift in FCSS budget due to varying factors. In 2019 to 2020, FCSS budget saw a notable decline, mainly due to municipal cuts with significant reduction in home support and special projects. In 2020 to 2021, a slight budget dip was observed, largely due to reductions in home support fees, which is due to the loss of the position in the previous year. In 2021 to 2022, the budget rose with the introduction of the Indigenous Relations Advisor position and some added revenue from the Housing Initiative into CSD administration. In 2022 to 23, we saw an increase in the budget, was attributed to a CSD administration cost. With departmental restructuring, the housing and homelessness fees were moved from the CSD budget to the housing and homelessness budget, and municipal contributions saw a significant jump. The 2024 budget plan to refine CSD administration expenditures is being evaluated. This report is intended for information purposes and gives a transparent view of CSD's financial operations and its commitment to serving the community efficiently. On October the 4th, a meet and greet is being planned for all FCSS funded organizations, CSD, and City Council. This gathering presents a chance for organizations and City Council to engage in conversation and become familiar with the programs and services supported by FCSS. We look forward to seeing Council at the event. This is the end of my report. Thank you. And I welcome questions and comments.
Great, thank you. I see Councillor Berg and then Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Chair Bressie, and thanks, Ms. Wenzel, for the report. It's great to see the breakdown of the money that we're contributing. As far as contributions go, you mentioned the province. When you mention municipalities, is that exclusively Grande Prairie, or is that Grande Prairie plus some of our neighbors?
That is exclusively Grande Prairie.
Thank you.
Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Chair Bressie. Thank you for the report. I just have a question on the last attachment. It says special projects, $80,000 budget. Municipal contribution is $60,000. What does that mean? What are your special projects?
My special projects? The special projects that we have currently going on are the City of Grande Prairie Inclusive and Caring projects and the CBYF.
Okay, the youth. Okay. And then on that same one, you had other income of 185,000. What's that attributed to?
Sorry, which one are we looking at?
The very last attachment, the graphs. So it's other revenue under CSD administration, 50,000 and 135,000 from home support services, which gives you 185,000.
And that was in an attachment?
Yeah, right at the end. Well, the fourth attachment, the last page. I'm just curious who is giving the revenue to us. Is that me?
Oh, sorry. The revenue you're looking for. So our revenue comes from our home support program, which equates to about 115,000 a year.
Okay.
So those are the fees paid by residents to the city of Grande Prairie for supports and services.
Okay. And on your Meals on Wheels, does the public pay for that, a certain portion or all of it?
That program is with Seniors Outreach, and yes, they do charge a minimal fee for services to the community.
Thank you.
Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you. Ms. Wenzel, I know that FCSS funding is, the province uses a funding formula that has a minimum amount of what the city is required to match. Can you remind me what those numbers are and how much above that minimum matching number we're at?
So currently we are at about 48% each. So the city is putting in 48% and the provincial government is putting in 48%.
And the minimum we're required to put in is 20%?
That is correct.
Okay. And is the funding formula still based on per capita?
Yes, based on the numbers of people that live in the municipality.
Okay. And then one other question that's a little bit off on a different topic. CBYF, when they identify youth, can you tell me what ages those youth are? It's always different, every organization.
Thank you for the question through the chair. This project is from 13 till 30 to 30.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. A question I had was, you mentioned that the provincial contribution hasn't risen since 2015, but there was a 15%, well, close to 14%, a $15 million increase to it in 2023-2024. Is it just that we're not going to see that in our FCSS budget till 2024, or are we not getting a share of that increase?
Sorry, yes, we did, to the chair, yes, in 2023, in April of 2023, we did get a 4.5% increase, which equate to about 43,000 for our municipality. In the upcoming years, we will see the same 4.5% in the next 3 years at 50%. Those numbers are not shown in this not shown exactly in here at this point.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Somebody willing to do some business then? Councillor Berg?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Bressie. I would like to move that we accept this for information.
So definitely in order. I'll call that question.
Councillor O'Connor in favor.
And that motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Wenzel, for the information. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And next up, I'll turn it to Chief Lemieux to introduce our grant application report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So on May 23rd, Council or Committee directed administration to bring back a Fire Smart report for Council's consideration. That report is still coming to you in September. That's outstanding item list number 1273. However, as part of our research and our work, we as a city are applying for 2 FRIAA grants. FRIAA is the Forest Resource Improvement Association of Alberta, and one of those grants will be for vegetation management to clean up some of our hazardous areas, and the second application is for a Fire Smart Public Education grant. We require a council motion as part of this application process, so that's what this recommendation is, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councillor O'Connor.
If nobody has questions, I'll do the business.
See Councillor Blackmore and Councillor Bosch, so I'll make sure that you get to do the business though.
Thank you, Councillor Bressie. Can you tell me, Chief Lemieux, FRIAA grants, we usually have to apply for them through through one of the members of FRIAA, which would be Weyerhaeuser, Camphor, or International Paper, Miller Western. Are we doing that?
No, we're not. There's actually a stream for municipalities to apply for FRIAA grants.
Okay, good.
Councillor Bosch, then Mayor Clayton.
Thank you. In the budget financial implications, it says applicants are to contribute financially versus whether it's financial or gift in kind. Can you explain the $200,000 budget to that?
So the maximum grant that any municipality is eligible for under these programs is up to $200,000. As part of our application, we're expected to contribute something. It doesn't have to be cash. It could be gift in kind. So all of our staff time is something that would be taken into consideration. So this certainly won't be a significant financial ask. Most of it probably will be gift in kind from the municipality.
Mayor Clayton.
Chair Bressie, I'm looking for the exact wording, but Chief Lemieux, I read somewhere recently that the County of Grande Prairie applied for a FRIAA grant as well, and I'm curious if it was a similar grant. Do you happen to know?
Yes, it would be the same organization, and county has applied over several years for vegetation management and other programs. Yes, it's the same program.
And is there opportunities for collaboration on that, or is it two different departments go out and if awarded, do separate work?
Thank you for that question. We did ask the FRIAA organization about that very specific question, and what they said is, no, you need to apply separately.
Okay.
So they will not consider joint application. They want to see separate applications.
Thank you.
And Councillor O'Connor with the business.
Thank you, Chair Bressie. I'd move that committee recommend council support the city's 2 FRIAA grant applications for vegetation management and for fire smart public education.
So definitely in order, not seeing any discussion or debate, so I'll call that to question. And that motion carries. So with that, we do have other business. We've got Curling Club feasibility. I'll turn over to Mr. Lemieux first to see if there's anything he wants to see up before I turn over to committee to see what they want to do with this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we presented that report at the last committee meeting, and there was a lot of discussion around with the committee members and members of council with regards to perhaps needing more information on this particular topic. So that's why we thought we'd bring it back here for further conversations to see if there was direction from the committee.
Great. Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Chair Bressie. I'm looking to have a conversation with administration in regards to the opportunities at the Curling Club facility. As we can all appreciate, it's a organization that isn't year-round, as curling is a winter sport. And the report that committee received 2 weeks ago suggested and talked about opportunities if there was a change of use in the facility. I believe that there is recreational opportunities in that facility based on our needs in our community that could be low cost and therefore not be a change of use in recreation. And what I'd like the committee to discuss, and I'm happy to put a motion forward if required, or if preferred, I'd like to discuss if council has an interest, or rather if committee has an interest in exploring those opportunities in recreation in the facility. It could be, as identified in the report, there's accessibility needs if we continue to want to utilize the facility for other recreation. However, there are opportunities in that facility, things like floor hockey, basketball, pickleball, different sport needs in our community that have been identified. And so I'm happy to make a motion to direct administration to bring back a report identifying opportunities based on recreational needs in our community for further discussion at this committee.
Sure. So you are making that motion?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So that's definitely on the table. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, I actually support that motion that Mayor Clayton had just made. One of the things that I did find confusing was a lot of the costs associated with the curling center was change of use, and I don't think that's council's intention necessarily to change the use. What we want to do is create more recreation facility or more recreation opportunities, and in my mind anyway, curling is a recreational sport. So I don't quite understand why it would be a change of use, so let's work with that and get a report and find out some of the parameters and what we can do cost effectively.
Great. I'm just looking at the motion and just a bit of wordsmithing in the curling club building. Yep. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Chair Bressie. I like the motion. I'm not on this council or committee, but I just we've got this stuff back from the Bose Center as well and the Bonnettes, and so I feel that there's synergies on multiple buildings. So I appreciate a report coming back on the curling club, but I do think it's a holistic look at some of our facilities, and could we be moving some stuff over to one building that could utilize and make that space better? And so I'm still, I guess for me, still torn on. When we got a report back on the Bose side, it was about a 50% utilization of days being used, and I'm not convinced those events even all need to be in that building, to be honest. So I'm still not sure that building's being utilized to the same level we'd like it to be in my mind. And I think the curling club is just an extension of that process to me. And so I know this motion's about specifically the curling club, but I think there's some synergies there that we should be looking at these holistically together and being like, is there not an opportunity to make one of these buildings into a full-time facility that's sports and rec and make it work with the other building? And maybe it's curling combined with some events. I'm not sure how that would look, but I feel like the report we got back on the Bonnette Center, to me, didn't make me conclusively feeling that was the best use of that facility for the community's dollars as well. So just some comments from me on that.
Councillor O'Connor.
Taking that, Mayor Clayton, would you accept a slight modification of the motion to add the Bonnettes, what do you call it, the other side?
Not at this time.
Not at this time? Okay. I'll make that motion afterwards then.
I don't speak to that. I'm glad that the mayor wasn't open to a friendly amendment there, because I really appreciate that. I think that we should be talking about increasing utilization of Bose, but they are different buildings. And for me, there's more urgency at their curling club, not just because it's an underutilized facility, but also because there's a nonprofit running it that I think is doing exceptional work, trying to claw its way to long-term financial viability. And I think full utilization of it is important, not just to get that building going, but also to help that nonprofit in their goals that they're doing. And so for me, it is more urgent than the Bose, although both are very important to me. Yeah, I'm not seeing anybody else, so I'll let you close on this motion, McLean.
Thanks. Appreciate the support on this. I think that opportunities would include, as if you're a curler, you understand that there's wood dividers between, and we would assume that if those are removable, that then there's missing concrete. If they're not removable, then they're obviously in the way for open space. And so I think the report should include consideration of covering that in a temporary floor, sport court, whatever that, and that should include the cost of the sport court. If it's as simple as people going in there to play pickleball, we obviously have to make sure that it's a safe space. So by removing those boards or having those separators in there, that consideration needs to be given. In regards to the Bonnette Center, I think that there is significant opportunity in the Bose Family Gardens. And I expect that I can't recall when, but I know there's a report coming back in regards to opportunities at Evergreen Park. And so that conversation could in turn that report could in turn open conversations on recreational uses in the Bose Family Garden. And so with that, I'll maybe ask Mr. Lemieux, when do we expect to have a conversation on municipal collaboration and utilization of Evergreen Park?
That's slated for later in September.
Thank you. Okay, perfect. So I'm good, thanks.
Excellent. Well, I will call that question then. That motion carries. And Councillor O'Connor, did I hear from you that you want to do additional business?
Yes, thank you, Chair Bressie. I'd like to move that the city administration bring back a report to identify other facilities like the Bonnettes and the Bose Center to see if there is a willingness to accommodate other sports. If somebody wants to wordsmith that, I'd be happy.
I'll let it get in, then happy to let you take a look at it, see if it meets your intent, and happy to help wordsmith it. Oh, I was going to share my thoughts, but I'll go to Councillor Blackmore first.
Of course, I am not on the committee and don't have a vote, but it feels to me that the motion is premature if we're expecting a report in September regarding county-city collaboration.
I know for me personally, really appreciate the intent of it, but I can't support this motion because I think that we had information come to committee about utilization of the bows that I think sets us up well. We've got this report coming back on temporary flooring space without look like to come in to put in facilities. So I just think there's a few other natural touch points where we can discuss the bows and other city facilities. I don't know if we need another thing on our outstanding items list for it. So for me personally, I can't support this motion right now. I heard Councillor Palat moving. Yeah.
Thanks, Chair Bressie. I appreciate the intent too, but I do think those other ones will come back and touch it. And I think it's incumbent on us when we get the curling report back and the other reports back around regional collaboration, that if we still feel like I do, that there's an appetite to work on the both sides specifically to turn it into a better purpose facility. That's our job at that point. So I think with reports coming back, I tend to agree with Chair Bressie. I think those are our touch points to really come back and say, hey, here's an opportunity we feel to get more information, or if the information provides us the answers we're looking for.
I can retract the motion if that's best served.
Any objections from committee with that being withdrawn? All right, great. Well, thank you, Councillor O'Connor, for starting that conversation, because I think it is an important conversation to have, so thank you. With that, I'll move us, we don't have bylaw or policy review, I'll move us to our outstanding items list. Chief Lemieux.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I propose some amendments to the outstanding items list. Item 1283, the people responsible should be Katie Beberdorf, please. Expected report date Q4. Item 1284, Royal Canadian Legion flags. Again, Katie's name under responsibility and expected report Q4 2023. Item 1275, Grande Prairie Public Library. I'd like to add Stephanie Cajolet's name as a person responsible and Q4. And then item 1277 can be removed as it was dealt with today. So those are my proposed amendments to the outstanding items list.
Councillor O'Connor.
I'd like to move that committee receive the August 29th, 2023 outstanding items list as amended for information.
Excellent. Definitely in order. Not seeing any discussion, so I'll call that to question. And that carries. So with that, I'll call this meeting adjourned. Not sure who's next.
I'm next with financial.